Emil Guillermo, the dimpled Filipino in front of the dimpled gong, the dimpled garland gong, because 'tis the season. You got to bring out your dimpled garland gongs whenever you can. Speaking before you from low. Well, actually, we're not that low. We're high above, but not that high. In the red part of the blue state, California, it's Emil Amok Stakeout with me, Emil Amok. Emil Guillermo. Emil Amok to you. This is our program. We got the, you hear the music, you get the vibe, and you say, wow, that guy really is Filipino? Yeah. He's talking like something's urgent. And it's not about food. Not yet. This is show 205. We're here. This is the, what I call, I think it's expressive, it's descriptive, the micro talk show of the AAPI and the AAX micro because it's small. And, you know, you got to celebrate the micro talk show on the shortest day of the year. I mean, this is the winter solstice. I mean, it's like short. We celebrate the shortness of it all right here. The micro talk show of the AAPI and the AAXs, and you don't have to be any of those. You can just be an ALL, which is all the rest of you, which I talk about you people. I talk about all you people. Everything I say involves all of us. That's diversity. So welcome to our program. We're here Monday through Friday. We come on 2 p.m. Pacific Live, as I like to say, 2 p. Pacific Live. And you say, Emil, I'm checking my sundial, and it says it's 1:52. You are giving us 8 more minutes. Yeah, that's called the gift of giving. Just give till it hurts. Yeah, you know, I call this the micro talk show because most talk shows, if you listen to them, you know, they give the little rap, the monologue at the front end, you know, and then you know that's why that guy's a bastard, and don't you think that it gets you all riled up, and so you call in, and then the phones light up, and then the people say, oh, I disagree with you, or I agree with you, whatever. And that usually is how a talk show works, you know, first 10 minutes, and then the people call, and then you get like 40 commercials, and then it's over. That's the hour. And then sometimes times 3, and that's your talk show. I call this a micro talk show because I talk, you listen, you don't have to talk. You can just say, yeah, you know, thank goodness Emil talked about that because I don't think I would have thought about that. I just don't think, you know, he put it in such a way that I am so inspired now. Yeah, I mean, you know, possibly. So we have done 205 of these. And what do you want me to do? Go fishing or something? Hey, I'm vegan. So I do this. I talk to you. I don't wait around for someone at a station that says, well, you know, we're looking for the next Rush Limbaugh and you're Filipino, and that doesn't really match. Well, forget the Filipino part. It would never match, right? I mean, I was a talk show host in San Francisco, Sacramento, and Washington, D.C. And the thing is, you can't be a talk show host if you are not Rush Limbaugh, Fox News conservative. And I mean, you can, but, you know, they put you on it, you know, like sub midnight on the weekends or something. So this on Facebook, if you're listening on emilguillermo.media on Facebook, if you're listening on are you listening on Twitter at Emil Amok? It's kind of got a funky Periscope kind of graphic interface, but it's not bad. It's not a bad viewer. You can pick up, watch it live, at Emil Amok on Twitter, on YouTube. Are you watching on YouTube? YouTube's kind of fun. I like a handful. I don't think it's enough for a poker hand, but it's okay. It's always up there. The YouTube channel, Emil Guillermo on YouTube. Anyway, we do this Monday through Friday because we like to talk about stuff that should concern Filipinos. And today we're going to talk about how it's weird how if you're liberal, you're really conservative in terms of going out and being, in the Omicron mess. I mean, here's an interesting thing. You say Omicron, I say Omicron. This is the tomato virus version. I really think we should say Omicron because that's the way the Greeks say it. Just like I say Guillermo because that's the way the Filipinos say it. And I know this because I called my credit card company and they got me to Manila, a person who helped me, and they said, "Oh, Mr. Guillermo." Say that again into my recorder, so I'll play it for everyone. So you let everyone know that this is how you say my name. I'm sure they have a similar thing for Omicron. You can call a call center in Greece, and they say, "Well, us in Greece, we say Omicron, not Omicron. Are you meditating or something?" Anyway, this is a show where we're going to talk about how it's funny that the liberals are kind of like skittish about going out. The conservatives, they just want to go out. They forget, the fancy garb. They just want to go out. They don't care. It's funny that way, isn't it? Conservatives are liberal and the liberals are conservative when it comes to Omicron and COVID. We're going to talk about Biden, his message today. Also talk about Joe Manchin. Man, what is Manchin thinking? And now, everyone's trying to figure out a strategy. Well, do we bring him in? Do we get something for nothing? Or do we get something at least? Leave with something at hand? Or do we say, Joe Manchin, you're a creep. We're going to disown you. The Democrats are in a spot here. And then you have all these Democrats. There's something like almost 24 Democrats who are leaving Congress. Roybal Allard in L.A., she's decided she's going. Stephanie Murphy. Roybal Allard, she's a Latina, but Stephanie Murphy is an Asian American out of Orlando. She's had it. The moderates are saying that's it. She's a moderate. She's not an AOC squad type. So I'm looking at Congress, and I spent a little time there. I was a press secretary, speechwriter, so I know what the buzz can be like. And even back when I was there was a feeling when you were in the party in the outs that you weren't able to do anything. But now, what is it when people are actually, all right, they're a majority, but a slim one, but they feel, or the message they're sending is, we can't do anything in Congress. All you do in Congress now is raise money. You're constantly raising money for the next go round. And the only people who survive are the legacies who find a nice cush district. They hang on. Zoe Lofgren, California. Anna Eshoo, California. I worked for a guy, Mineta. He had the same thing until he finally gave up, but he did go on to work in the executive branch. He was a member of 2 cabinets, Clinton and Bush. So you know what kind of politician he was. He was a good one. One who knew how to play both sides and effectively. But now we have people just giving up because they can't seem to get a sense of What is the purpose here? And of course, the American public, they see that Build Back Better is going to be Build Back Cheaper, or maybe Build Back not at all. They're wondering what's going on. What's going on here? And I'm saying this as someone who is partial to the Democrats and to Biden. And you want to hang in there because you give him the benefit of the doubt. You know it's not totally his fault. But it's not looking good for the Blues. But what should motivate you is the red team is still the red team. And they're still divisive as heck with no answers either, except for the 1%. I think you got to cut President Biden and his administration some slack on all these things. Meanwhile, Manchin held it up. Manchin's passing out the lump of coal. I like I said yesterday, I don't know what the future is, but they've got a few months to figure it out. Months? No, they got to do this soon, because then we're going to be in 2020, into the midterms, and the January 6th thing is an opportunity, and that might be missed because people may grow weary and not want to continue fighting. Which, when I hear 23 members of Congress want to bail out, that's what it signals to me. Well, so that's politics. And I didn't even begin to talk about COVID or Omicron. It is Omicron. Not yet, but we will now, because we're into the 2 o'clock hour. Welcome again to our program. I'm Emil Guillermo. Emil, Amok to you. Man, Joe Biden is trying. He's trying, but he cannot. I mean, did you see any of that, the speech? All right, so he's going to have a $500 million free at-home tests, help from the military. That's great. But here's the line that gets me. He wants to build up our spirits because he doesn't want to be the president who canceled Christmas, right? He doesn't want to be that guy. And this is March of 20. He says, this is not March of 2020. 200 million people are fully vaccinated. We're prepared. We know more. And yet at the same time, who's he kidding? We know less. Part of what we fear, or part of what makes us almost immobile, is that we don't know everything we need to know about Omicron. It's coming in drips and drabs, and we know about a party in Norway where people were vaccinated, and still a large number, majority came back, infected. I mean, there are case studies that are coming out. It just takes a while before this information, gets out there. But we're trying our best to do what we usually have done in these cases. What's the risk of infection? What is our willingness to accept that risk? What is the value of the thing that we're going to do? Do you want to see Uncle Fred at the Christmas party fall asleep in front of the TV watching another Hallmark movie? Okay, we could do without that this year. Okay, how about all the other people falling asleep in their mashed potatoes? Okay, well, maybe we could do without that too. And so suddenly it's just, what's the risk of infection? Well, so far we know the risk is high. And what's our willingness to accept that risk? And I think really basically, if you're young, you should be willing to accept it a little bit. Now, I know I look young, but I got an old soul. And the startling fact that people 65 plus are 80 times higher in terms of death rates than teens and people in their 20s. People 65 plus. Now, I know a lot of them are, I'm on the young side of that. I know a lot of people are on the older side. That's where all the deaths are happening, nursing homes and that kind of thing. But the vulnerability level, even though I'm healthy, I don't go to a doctor very often because I don't need it. I'm a vegan. I'm healthy, although I do have potato chips every now and then. My vulnerability level is low, but am I willing to accept the risk? We got high infection. We got low vulnerability, but my willingness to accept the risk, or I got high vulnerability because of my age, but my willingness to accept the risk is low. So those are the issues that I considered, because as I said yesterday, I'm the Grinch. I'm the Grinch in my household. I said, we are not going to have an Omicron Christmas. Not until I see Hallmark do a happy Omicron Christmas movie. Well, I say, yeah, I'll do that too. Because, once it's in Hallmark, everything is sort of inoculated. Everything is inoculated, homogenized, and safe. I can do that. But until then, I, I, I I just want to stay put. And really, you look at your bio, your health bio. Like I said, mine would be, healthy, older, but healthy, no problems, except, a generation ago, because those Filipinos eat pork. They had heart disease. Me, you give me a while, I'll develop some. Give me some of that lechon, and I'll develop heart disease. But so my one liner, my health bio should be pretty safe. But remember, it's not about you. It's not about you going in the world. It's the world. Really. It's like, what are all the other people doing? And what aren't they doing? And who are they meeting? Because even if, here's the thing with Omicron. If you're vaccinated, Omicron can still penetrate. It's like, you know, passing out, the vaccine and the booster for certain people isn't as preventive as it could be. That's what they're finding. And then if you're vaccinated and boosted, you may not even show signs of, you may be asymptomatic. The key thing is, if you're young, you might get a sniffle. They say, okay, it's not as bad. We think, we hope. But this is where you get into that unknown territory. Who knows? Who knows? And so this is where I get back to the idea that, hey, as a more liberal person, I am very conservative when it comes to public health, especially when I consider the value of the activity that I'm about to enter in. It'd be great to go to church, go to mass. It'd be great to see people. It'd be great. I had a friend who died recently. I think she had a funeral, but I didn't even think to go to the funeral because I didn't even go to funerals of family members that I knew. I have family members who had died during the last 18 months. But we had one of those Zoom funerals, that's terrible. I mean, Zoom works for some things. Like Zoom works like for now. Like now I talk to you and you think, oh, it's like Emil's in my closet. He's talking about Omicron. That doesn't work all the time. So I made my decision to, one daughter flying in for these. I said, no, you better stay. She had a medical thing going on. So I said, not safe. Another daughter down south. I said, no, you better not come. Another daughter, I said, no, we're going to Zoom. We're going to play Scrabble on Zoom and do puzzles on Zoom on Christmas or something. We'll come up with something, but it'll be safe. And we'll live to celebrate another day. And we will. That's what I'm doing. I'm not saying you should do it, but that's what I feel comfortable doing. Just knowing all the things that they don't know. And, to hear Joe Biden say, this is not March 2020. Well, it isn't March 2020. It actually is kind of worse. We got 800,000 dead. We didn't have that in March 2020. We didn't really know everything in March 2020 about anything. But now we know a little about Delta and nothing about Omicron. Oops, I said it wrong. Omicron. And but the main thing is, look, it doesn't mean you have to cancel everything. You can have some fun. How do you have fun? Well, like I said, you consider the risk. You consider the willingness to accept that risk and the value of the activity. And somewhere within those three things, you can find the triangulation of truth. And whether or not you are willing to go to X, Y, or Z. And if you can do that, power to you. But I'd only do it if you're vaccinated and boosted. That is the key. I mean, that really is the key. You got to be vaccinated and boosted. And because I don't want you to misunderstand me. I'm all for the booster. I'm all for I'm triple shotted. But even there, it's not definitive that you will be protected against Omicron. And that's the unknown that makes me kind of weirded out. That's what makes the risk high, and that's what makes this definitely not March 2020. Doesn't mean it's better, doesn't mean it's worse. It just means that there are a number of unknowns. And, Biden says he's going to get those tests out there. He's going to get 500 million free at-home tests. All right, if they're going to be free, that's great because they cost about $8 to $10 each, and you get a packet of 2, and it costs about $17 to $20. I know because I bought some last week. Now I can't get any until January. So you got to test, and you got to test. You can't test. Those rapid tests are all right, but you can't test like 3 days before, because a lot happens between taking the test and then going to the eventual destination where you will infect grandma or grandpa. So you got to do it like you ring the doorbell. I open the window from the second floor, and then I attach a bucket to a string, and I lower down an in-home test on a bucket, right? I'm at the window. I'm masked, of course. I say, okay, hi, nice seeing you. Go back to your car, and here's your test. In 15 minutes, they should know if they can come in. That's the way I do it if people were going to come see me. That would be prudent. That would be prudent. More prudent than George Bush. So anyway, that's a situation. Home tests are essential. They're going to distribute 500 million free home tests, Biden said. But when? I mean, I see those signs or the pictures of people outside drugstores in New York City waiting to get tested. And I'm saying, oh man, you got to have these things have to fall out of the sky or something, or you make them available at people. Got to have them in hand. We've used one packet just to see how it works, and it works. You're like 93% certain, 93, 95% certain, which is pretty good. Pretty good. It gives you a sense of confidence. But like I said, it's, can you get a test? I'm going to guard my packet of 8 until those freebies start coming along, because they're not easy to come by, and they're expensive. So you got to vaccinate. You got to get boosted if you haven't. And there was an interesting op-ed in the New York Times. Facts alone aren't going to win over the unvaccinated. This might. Oh yeah, let's see, what is it? They're going to attach some kind of sexual thing to the, no. Emil, that's not nice to say. Well, okay. The thing is, the unvaccinated are getting hurt. The virus wants to attach itself to a host, and it doesn't want, me or you who are vaccinated. They want an unvaccinated person, because then they could do their mess. And if they find an unvaccinated or a vaccinated person, say you're all right, you be a vaccinated person, I'll be Omicron. Like, I'm Omicron. I'm just scheming on you. Okay, gotcha. Oh, shoot. Vaccinated. I shot my shot. I wasted it on a vaccinated person. Okay, I mean, I can't be the best virus, but I can make him or her sick a little bit. See, that's how it feels. I'm trying to be empathetic. I'm trying to be empathetic on the virus's part. I'm Omicron. I'm vaccinating. I'm infecting you. You're vaccinated. Oh, you've just thwarted me. But you still have a chance of getting a little sick. Okay. Meanwhile, all right. So on the virus, you're unvaccinated. I gotcha. And now I can do my viral magic. Oh, wow. They didn't tell me this in virus school, that I would be like this and I could wreak this kind of havoc. That's what happens. I'm just telling you, you got to if you're unvaccinated, get vaccinated. So Anupam Jena and Christopher Worsham, they're Harvard Medical School folks. They wrote this op-ed, and they said, look, we need to have people vaccinated, but there are people who simply don't believe they should get it. And they just don't think it's going to do them any good. And it's not logical. It's not rational. And they've done a study that was published on December 13th. They examined, get this, 750,000 children eligible to receive the human papillomavirus vaccine to prevent cervical cancer. And since the vaccine was approved in 2006, it has experienced resistance from parents and religious and conservative groups who see it as promoting sexual behavior. Can you imagine that? Oh, you better take this because you won't get human papilloma disease. But people are resistant because they believe that the vaccine promotes sexual behavior. And this is a politicization of the vaccine that is the harbinger for what's happened with the coronavirus or the corona vaccines. So Here's what they asked. Are mothers who themselves had cervical cancer more likely to have their children vaccinated against HPV? You think mothers have cervical cancer, so they want to vaccinate their kids so they don't get it, right? So they thought that the mothers, you know, that a lack of information about the consequences of HPV couldn't possibly affect their decision to vaccinate their children. That's what they thought. These women had personally suffered. Here's what they found. The girls and boys whose mothers had cervical cancer were no more likely to be vaccinated against HPV compared with children whose mothers had no history of cervical disease. This is the scary science, that there is no logic behind why people do what they do when it comes to vaccine, especially when it's about life or death. So they were expecting that mothers who knew how bad it was, that they would have their kids vaccinated, and there was no difference. No difference compared with children whose mothers had no history of cervical disease. So this is what the upshot of this op-ed. They question, well, what works? And they say, okay, lotteries motivated some people to be paid, but not enough. And the best thing that worked was the negative motivation. Behavioral science research suggests that one of the best ways to motivate behavior is through incentives, either positive or negative. But the best one seems to be employer vaccine mandates, a negative incentive. Get vaccinated or get fired. People do it. And yet, look at all the people who have protested. I know some people who have gotten fired instead of being vaccinated. So the idea of a negative incentive doesn't always work either. So here's the bottom line of this op-ed that's in the New York Times. By now, it's clear that the public health system does not know how to change people's beliefs about vaccines. What a sad fact. We cannot convince people of science. Or we cannot convince people that here's the science. Do this. We know this to be true. So, and their bottom line is, until we do, America's leaders should focus on other strategies, especially the ones we already know are effective, which is what? Masking, distancing. I don't know what has been effective. So when Joe Biden says, we are not where we were in March of 2020. No, we are a lot worse in some ways. Yes, this is not March of 2020. We should all be concerned about Omicron, but not panic. Yes, we should not panic. Don't panic. But we don't know what's going on here. We really don't know. So, for me, I feel a lot better being the Grinch. I mean, I told my friends that I canceled Christmas. Omicron Christmas, I said. And they said, oh, Emil, are you sure? I said, see, you sound Grinchy. Yeah, I'm Grinchy, but I think people will know that, especially since I'm in the group that like 80% of the deaths come from. I think they'll say, oh, okay, the risk is high, infectiousness is high, so it's got to be case by case. And it's hard to generalize and say, you shouldn't do it, you should do it. You shouldn't do it, you should. But the younger you are and the healthier you are, yeah, you're okay. The older you are, the less healthy you are, your antennae should be up. Oh, maybe not okay. Whatever your choice. You should know I have a Christmas story planned on New Year's Eve that I'll run on at 2 p.m. Pacific on Friday and throughout the weekend. I did a thing with my godbrother, Julian Simeon. We tell Filipino Christmas stories, not about a parole. I know I felt bad. I don't have a Christmas parole, which is like a Christmas Philippine star, because my parents weren't into pearls. I didn't discover pearls till later, but we did have a plastic tree, and I'll talk about my plastic tree in my Christmas story. Okay, so I hope I didn't bum you out too much about being a Grinch, but really you should think about this, whether or not it's worth it. Remember the three things: the risk of infection, it's high. Your willingness to accept the risk, low. And then the value of the activities that you're in question, high or low. Well, it's sort of high, but grandpa will be asleep. Okay, low. Two lows, stay put. I know you got to figure out your own set, your own equation that'll get you to the truth that'll make you feel comfortable. Of course, I'm not going to church. God, the last time I went to church, I went to a Christmas Eve mass, and there was this kid coughing in the back, and I knew, oh, she's going to give me something. She did. She gave me something. I didn't ask for it, but you turn around and said, okay, now turn around and like give a sign of peace. And I wanted to like give the sheepish sign of peace, but she wanted to shake hands. I mean, religion is sort of like a virus to begin with, but the good virus, right? It's not supposed to be the bad virus. Okay, some other things I want to get to before we end today's. This is the shortest day of the year, so this should be the shortest Emil and Mux Takeout live stream that we do all year. It should be the shortest. I think we might go over. So, a big deal about Marjorie Taylor Greene. And I'm a little concerned about Marjorie Taylor Greene because, I mean, when I heard about it, she used the term yellow, right, to describe Asian people, which some people say it's a racial slur. Yeah, it is. But here's what she said. Okay, this is from reports. She was at a conservative youth group, Turning Point USA, and she's talking to him. She's the Republican from Georgia, Marjorie Taylor Greene, who is such a dimwit, but actually maybe she's smart. She didn't want to work. She made some kind of, racist comments, or because she got stripped of her committee assignment. So essentially, she does nothing except go around making trouble, spreading her ignorance. So here's what she said at this group on Sunday. Quote, when I walked in yesterday, I was like, what kind of people come here? Green told attendees. So I'm walking around and seeing some good people, and I see white people and black people and brown people and yellow people and purple. No, she didn't say purple. She says yellow people, and that stops some people in their tracks. Now, I can see, this is sort of the race color litany that people use when they're just trying to talk about diversity. from their perspective, they'll say, oh, there's white people, black. I don't care. They'll say something like, I don't care who you are, white, black, brown, purple. Yeah, they'll say something like that, some variation of that. And that usually doesn't mean a racist intent, but it does mean ignorance. She said, and then there's talk of freedom and loving America and conservative principles. Some crazy people in here were talking about how much they love this guy named Jesus. And I heard someone I really like. I think I heard that a lot of people here like a guy named Donald Trump. And then I said, oh, I know what this is exactly. The left calls this a white supremacist party. Well, she is not demonstrating her white supremacism or her white supremacist tendency here necessarily, but she is demonstrating her ignorance. Here's one thing where I agree with the people who've attacked Marjorie Taylor Greene. When she goes around saying, I see white people, black people, brown people, yellow people. Well, she should know that yellow people is not our preferred way to be talked to. I mean, especially when you talk about all Asians, because I'm of a brownish yellow, if anything. And so George Takei tweeted, I honestly haven't heard someone use yellow people for decades. Perhaps she meant yellow-bellied people, because there are certainly lots in that crowd. Funny, George. But no, really, Marjorie Taylor Greene I think she was just relying on her ignorance. Oh, of course they're yellow, right? But you know what it means. I mean, they use ignorance as an excuse to say stupid things. Like, we know that yellow has been a term used to describe Asian people in a not, very complimentary way. People say, oh, yellow dog, yellow slur, yellow peril, yellow people. I mean, this is 2021. I mean, if she had said Oriental people, that would be bona fide ignorance with a little bit of racism, but more ignorance. When she said yellow and calling by their color, maybe her speechwriter said, look, you want to compare all these people's colors together, and that's going to be a big hit with your white conservatives. And so that's why she said, I see white people and black people and brown people and yellow people. I'm wondering why she didn't include the purple people, because usually people include purple to indicate the series, the language series of, normal, and then something sticks out like a sore thumb. The purple people, oh, there's no purple people. That's a joke, right? But here, it was almost the same thing, except it wasn't a joke. It was racist. The white people, the black people, the brown people, the yellow people. She's from Atlanta. Or not, well, I think Atlanta. She's from Georgia. And she knows what happened in Georgia this year when 6 Asian American women were killed, and want to try them as hate crimes, at least in Fulton County. She knows better. She's a leader. She can't claim ignorance. You just can't claim ignorance on something like this. But, what can you say about Marjorie Taylor Greene? She is one of the worst legislators, one of the worst members of the House, because she willingly gives up her assignments so she can wreak havoc in this way, in this rhetorical way. I saw some tweets from Aldef. Historically, the yellow peril has been used to conjure negative imagery of East Asians as uncivilized, unclean, perpetual foreigners. It is a term that was created by white supremacists obsessed with color coding a racial hierarchy. Hey, I'll heart that one. Beyond black and white, that obsession led to the indigenous people of the Americas being described as red, and East and sometimes Southeast Asians being described as yellow. Ultimately, the classification of Asians as yellow reinforced the white supremacist ideology where white people are on top and every other color is below. With an urgent need to stop Asian hate as violence against Asian Americans continues unabated, anti-Asian rhetoric, including the slur Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene carelessly used, must be vehemently condemned. And so those are my colleagues over at ALDEF writing that. I just saw it on Twitter and I said, by God, I couldn't believe she said that, number one. But I couldn't believe she would say that. And I just don't see why there should be much of a dispute. But here's one thing interesting in one of the responses. One person said, hey, it's okay if we call ourselves yellow, right? It's okay if we say, if we take over the term. It's not okay if you are not Asian and you use it. In the same way that, if you use the N-word in mixed race and say, hey, N-word, hey, I'm down with you, N-word, hey, we're just us, the N-words here. That is, you don't say that. We're not at that level of acceptance. We're not at that level where you just don't do that. And essentially, that's what she was doing. Taking the slur and casually trying to insert her into this notion of, hey, I'm down with you all. No, you're not, Marjorie Taylor Greene. So, I'm going to try to make this the shortest Emil Amok's Takeout live stream because it is the shortest day of the year, as a friend of mine pointed out to me today. Let me tell you about some things we have upcoming. I told you about the holiday story that I'll have up on amok.com and also all the places where you get it live. It'll be live at 2 p.m. Pacific. I recorded it, and it's me and Julian telling Filipino stories. That's coming up. Ishmael Reed is a friend of mine. I'm going to try to get him tomorrow to talk about his play opening up in New York, and lots of catch up with Ishmael. I just hope he gets people out there who are willing to mask up, and I just know I think they're live streaming it too. So we'll get all the information tomorrow from Ishmael. And also I did a podcast. You'll notice that this is Emil Muck's Takeout, the live stream. I also do Emil Muck's Takeout, the podcast. And on the podcast, you could pick it up on Spotify, and I think might be a few days, but iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, those kind of places. Emil Muck's Takeout. The latest one is on environmental racism and what Little Manila Rising is doing to fight environmental racism from Stockton, California, the central part of the state. They've got a $1 million grant from UC Merced, and they're going to air monitor. Now, this sounds like, oh, air monitoring, is that really that important? Yes, it is important, because just like a virus, you don't see it, you just breathe it in, and that stuff kills you in these tiny particles that get in your lungs, and they kill you, and you get asthma, and you die. And there is good reason why There's a crosstown freeway that goes from Highway 99 across Stockton to Highway 5 with tons of car pollution and truck pollution, and it all heads for the Port of Stockton, creating between 99 and 5 in the Port of Stockton a confluence of air pollution. Because at the port, what do they do at the port? At the port, they park the boats and they let them idle, spewing tons of particulate matter. And they do it because people of color live nearby. And they won't speak out, say anything. But they are now. Because of a group called Little Manila Rising. So, I do that podcast. That's on now. And then just today, I had an interesting conversation with that woman who wrote a piece about Philippine U.S. colonial history. And it just struck me because it was very similar to my experience. She wondered, well, where are the Filipino classes? And she found out, and then she did some research, and she said, wow, her school, Harvard, was more involved in the colonization and the brainwashing, the colonial brainwashing of Filipinos than she thought. And it was similar to the revelation I had 50 years earlier. And so there's a lot of work that needs to be done. And so she's going to be on the podcast next week. And hopefully you'll hear more of her writing. She's a talented writer. And I'll introduce her on the podcast next week on Emil Guillermo's Takeout. Anyway, all right. So it still qualifies as the shortest Emil Guillermo's Takeout in some time. Not like in honor of the winter solstice. I'm sorry about that. In the meantime, hey, look, we have a listener who writes in chat. Hi, Emil. Maligayang Pasko. Manigong bagong taon. Oh, so good. So good. Thanks, Lorraine, for bringing out my Filipino accent. And, of course, it's nice that she agrees with almost everything I say here. Okay, but that's good. Maligayang Pasko. Hey, we're still only on the 21st. Still only on the 21st. Tomorrow. Oh, the thing I say, read my my columns on the Aldef blog, because my column in the Aldef blog tomorrow is going to be particularly interesting because it will talk about something that happened on the 22nd. On the 22nd of December, and why Christmas is a special day. So, catch my columns on the Aldef blog, Asian American Legal Defense and Education Fund, Aldef, aaldef.org/blog. You can also read me on theinquirer.net, the website for the Filipino diasporans out there. I do a story about how Joe Manchin is a lump of coal guy, and he's destroying our Christmas. And I also talk about the Asian Americans at Harvard. What else? Oh, so thank you for listening. If you've made it this far, if you have come this far in our show, this is the time I get kind of meditative, and I start feeling like, if you feel like you don't belong, if you feel like something's right, like give your elbows a hug. You belong. You're not an imposter. You belong here. Right here. Just us. Just us. In this small little, it's not as big as a Manhattan studio apartment, but we got a gong. What else do you want? So, as I wish for me, I wish for you. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. And may you live with ease. Emil Guillermo here. Till next time. Tomorrow?